Craig, it's been a couple weeks since we saw it, and I think I have finally figured out Lost Highway. Now, when I say figured out, I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I don't mean that I've secretly interpreted David Lynch's intentions. I mean, I figured out this movie in a way that makes it work for me and makes its meaning very real.
Go ahead.
My interpretation of this movie is based on the idea that the mystery man is in fact David Lynch, the filmmaker, and also that there are two overlapping worlds in Lost Highway. There's the world of the film, which is a fictional world, and there's the world of the mystery man or the filmmaker, which is our real world.
Got it, yes.
Now, it's interesting that Roger Ebert said that watching this movie was like reading a director's notebook, because that's exactly what this movie is. This movie is a cinematic representation of the creative process in progress. What we're presented with is an incomplete vision that has been dramatized before our very eyes. Let's start off at the beginning of the movie. We've got Fred Madison. Fred broods. He doesn't seem to be satisfied. That's because Fred is not a person. Fred is an incomplete character. He's one-dimensional. He doesn't make things happen and solve problems in his world because he's not complete. Look at the tattoo on his hand. The tattoo is a fermata, which is an element of musical notation indicating that the note should be sustained for longer than its note value would indicate. That's all Fred is. He's a sustained note. He's not a song. He's not a symphony. He's not even a phrase. He's just, that's it. That's why he can't make love to his wife in the bedroom. He's impotent because he's incomplete.
And if you look around the apartment, there's very little decoration. If your theory holds true, then interior design is basically a projection of yourself.
Yes. They start getting videotapes of basically what is the mystery man wandering around in their apartment at night. The author is trying to figure out what's going on here. He's trying to delve into his characters' lives and minds, and this is a literal interpretation of that on film. Fred goes to a party, meets the mystery man. This is the filmmaker. It's like Kurt Vonnegut in Breakfast of Champions. The author puts himself into the story. He demonstrates his omnipotence and omniscience to Fred. He pushes him around, he bullies him around, maybe as some way of figuring out the character. Maybe this is a representation of what goes on in an author's mind when he's developing a character and taking that clay and molding it and pounding it with his fists. That's what we're seeing here at the party. I don't know. So what happens next? A grisly murder is dropped into the story out of nowhere. Now, Fred suspects his wife of cheating, but he's certainly not going to dismember her corpse and bathe in her blood. This is the author really trying to make something happen here. He's just dropping the biggest thing he can in the middle of the story. But what it does is he kind of paints himself into a corner, because now Fred, who's still a one-dimensional character, is put in a prison, seemingly by himself, and trapped there. He has no chance of developing or doing anything.
Solitary confinement. There's no one to interact with.
Exactly. So what does the author do? He gets rid of Fred entirely, replaces him with another character. So let's see how Peter does, because Fred isn't cutting it so far. Now let's look at what happens right before they switch characters. I don't know if you remember this in the film. Fred looks at the wall of his prison, and a little curtain of reality parts, and we see the burning shack. The shack is burning in reverse. This shack is the creative process itself, or, if you will, the author's brain. Because if you think about it, creativity is an explosion in reverse. There's a spark, there's a flash of inspiration, but instead of something being destroyed, something is created. The mystery man walks out, sort of winks at Fred, and then all this crazy shit starts to happen. Now, the crazy shit starts to happen is because we have two overlapping worlds. We have the real world and the fictional world. The real world is causing something to happen in the fictional world that doesn't obey its laws. So that's why there's crazy lights and sounds, and Fred literally transforms into Peter. The fictional world has its own laws, but ultimately it has to adhere to the wants of the author. That's why when Peter just appears in prison, everyone goes, well, I don't know where he came from. Just let him go. So Peter is released back out into the world of the story and given a chance to develop and make something happen. Now, lots of stuff happens to Peter. I don't want to get into that. I want to jump ahead to when Peter and Alice go to the shack towards the end of the movie. They get to the shack and they make love in the dirt. Lovemaking, the ultimate act of creation. Now, throughout this act, Peter keeps saying, I want you. I want you. He says it over and over again.
I want you. I want you.
And ultimately, Alice says,
You'll never have me.
And she walks away from him and out of the story completely. Now, what's happening here is the author realizing via one of his more successful creations that Peter isn't cutting it either. So what happens then? Peter stands up, he turns back into Fred. Fred goes into the thing to confront the mystery man. The mystery man says,
What the fuck is your name?
because the author still doesn't know who this character is and why he's here. The character and the thread of the story are still eluding him. At the end, Fred goes back to his apartment and he whispers the line, Dick Laurent is dead. I think this is sort of the author's desperate attempt to find closure in this half-baked story, because the ending doesn't really mean anything.
Or he could be starting over again. It's like, all right, I have a better idea. You know, maybe this time I'll be able to get it done.
Oh, sure. Okay, I never thought of that. That's good. Fred speeds off at the end of the movie, down the Lost Highway. He starts transforming into other people and other characters, and he just goes back into the dark, primordial place where all ideas come from. E.L. Doctorow said that writing is like driving a car at night. You can only see as far as your headlights, but you can make the whole journey that way. A car driving at night and only being able to see as far as its headlights is the central image of this movie. And it has not taken the entire journey. This movie is a work in progress. Bearing all this in mind, I don't consider this to be an incomplete story or a half-assed narrative on David Lynch's or anyone else's part. But it is a director's notebook of sorts. It's a world where filmmaker and creation, idea generator and idea come together in a very unique way to take the viewer on a very unique journey.
How you describe it, it seems a lot like Pirandello's play Six Characters in Search of an Author, where you have the six characters showing up at the theater demanding of theater troupe to put on a play about them. They're one-dimensional characters, and they want to be fully fleshed.
In this sense, I don't even think Lynch has gotten as far as having real vivid characters. I mean, they're just sort of like ideas in search of a story rather than characters in search of an author.
There's no character that you can really latch onto, which no matter how strange you make your movie, you have to have that one person that you want to see succeed or fail in some way. Since you don't have that with anyone in the movie, and you don't really hate the villain, Mr. Eddie, you can't really come along for the ride as much as you could with pretty much every other film that Lynch has ever made.
Mr. Eddie's kind of the most interesting character in the movie.
Well, him and the Mystery Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not anything concrete to hang your hat on with the Mystery Man. He's fun because he looks crazy and he says cryptic things, and when he shows up, things get interesting. But Mr. Eddie, just as a character, I mean, he's got energy. You know what his motivations are. You know why he does the things he does, and
it's not a mystery that you really want to figure out.
The movie feels like it's feeling around in the dark.
Yes, as you said, how that doesn't seem to be fully formed yet.
I think that is a goal in itself that the movie reaches. I think it's possibly the best way that you can make half a movie and make it work.
I suppose so.